There's a reason why at certain moments in life you feel utterly lost, as if the ground beneath you has disappeared and the map you once carried no longer makes sense. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams, who looks inside, awakens." And perhaps this is exactly what it means to feel lost. It is not a punishment, but a call to awaken. The universe, in its mysterious way, sometimes strips away the familiar so that you can discover what lies within. It is in that inner space, when everything external feels uncertain, that you are invited to trust something deeper, something unseen yet profoundly real. And it is here, in this tension between confusion and clarity, that you begin the journey of learning how to trust the universe when life no longer feels like it has direction. There is a certain courage that comes from admitting to yourself that you feel lost. Most people try to hide from it, pretend they know exactly where they are going, or cover their confusion with noise, distractions, and endless business. But when you pause long enough to face that sense of disorientation, something begins to shift. You are no longer running away from it. You are allowing yourself to meet it. To acknowledge that you are lost is not a confession of failure, but an opening into something deeper. It is a moment of truth, where you stand unmasked before life and whisper, "I don't know." And in that admission, the first seeds of trust are planted. So often we are taught that life should be a straight path, a predictable climb towards success, certainty, and clarity. But the reality is that every meaningful journey passes through the wilderness. Feeling lost is not a detour, it is part of the way. Just as the night sky can only reveal its stars in the absence of the sun, your moments of uncertainty reveal truths that would remain hidden in times of certainty. You may resist them at first, wishing for clarity, but the universe often begins its work in the soil of confusion. To acknowledge your lostness is to strip away the illusion that you must always have an answer, always have a direction, always know what comes next. Life does not demand that of you. Life asks only for honesty. And honesty sometimes sounds like, "I don't know where I am going. I don't know who I am becoming. I only know I am here, and I am willing to face it." That willingness, that soft surrender, is the beginning of a deeper trust. Think about the times you've been lost before. Perhaps in childhood, standing in a crowded place where nothing felt familiar. Or in your adult years, when a dream fell apart, a relationship ended, or your sense of identity dissolved. What followed? Did life abandon you? Or in the strange unfolding of time, did you discover something you never would have if you had clung desperately to the old? The truth is, being lost has always been the threshold to something greater, though it rarely feels that way while you are in the thick of it. In moments of being lost, the mind rushes to judgment. It says, "You've failed. You should have figured this out. Everyone else knows where they are going but you." These thoughts echo like shadows in the silence. But notice that it is the mind speaking, not life itself. The universe does not condemn you for being lost. It does not mark you as unworthy. It simply waits for you to stop fighting the reality of where you are, so that it can begin guiding you toward where you are meant to be. The power of acknowledging lostness lies in what it dissolves. It dissolves the need to pretend. It dissolves the exhausting performance of always appearing in control. It dissolves the fear of being seen as vulnerable. When you admit to yourself that you feel lost, you are no longer trapped in resistance. You are standing in truth, and truth, even when uncomfortable, has a quiet strength to it. It clears the fog of illusion and leaves you open to guidance. There is a paradox here. The moment you stop insisting that you must know where you are going, a deeper clarity begins to emerge. The universe does not reveal the whole map at once. It gives you the next step, then the next. But it can only hand you the next step when your hands are not already clenching a plan that no longer serves you. Admitting you are lost frees your grip. It creates space for something new to arrive. This is why the most transformative journeys begin in darkness. To stand in that space without rushing to escape it is an act of trust in itself. It is a way of saying, Even here, where I do not see the road, I believe there is a path. And in time, as the fog slowly lifts, you realize that being lost was never the end, it was the invitation. And so, when you feel lost in life, do not fear it and do not run from it. Let it teach you what certainty never could, because the moment you acknowledge that you are lost is the very moment you are found by the universe. The universe rarely shouts. It doesn't always announce itself with grand gestures or blazing signs that light up the sky. More often, it speaks softly in the pauses between your thoughts, in the quiet moments when you finally stop pushing against life and simply allow yourself to listen. That's the challenge, isn't it? We live in a world so filled with noise, constant demands, endless comparisons, voices telling us who we should be and where we should go, that we forget the most important truths are spoken in silence. To trust the universe, you have to learn to hear what is being whispered beneath the chaos. Think about those moments when something inside you nudged you long before logic caught up. Maybe you felt a pull to call a friend at just the right time, or you had a sense to take a different path that led you to an unexpected opportunity. These are not coincidences. They are the universe's language, but it is a language that requires sensitivity, patience, and presence to understand. It's like hearing a faint melody in the distance. If you are rushing, you'll miss it. If you slow down, it becomes clear. The silence of the universe is not empty. It is filled with messages waiting for you to notice. Every time you sit quietly and allow yourself to feel, every time you step away from distraction and lean into stillness, you are tuning into that frequency. The guidance doesn't always come in words. It comes in feelings, in intuition, in a knowing that seems to rise from somewhere beyond the mind. You cannot force it. You can only receive it when you are willing to be still enough to listen. This is why so many people miss the signs. They are looking for something loud and undeniable, when in reality, the universe often works with subtlety. It is not trying to overwhelm you, it is trying to align you. The gentle nudge, the sudden clarity, the synchronicity that catches your attention. These are the universe's ways of saying, this is the direction. Keep going. But if you are always filling your space with noise, always racing to the next thing, those whispers get drowned out. You may think you are alone, unsupported, directionless, when in truth, the guidance has been there all along, waiting for you to quiet down enough to hear it. Consider how nature communicates. A seed does not scream when it begins to grow. It simply unfolds in silence. The tides don't announce their rhythm. They move steadily, guided by forces unseen. The sunrise doesn't demand your attention. It rises whether you notice or not. The universe is like this. It does not demand, it does not force, it simply offers. And when you are ready, when your mind is calm enough, you begin to notice how life has been guiding you with the same quiet constancy. There is a profound humility in learning to listen to silence. It requires letting go of the ego's need for dramatic answers, for instant clarity, for control. The ego says, show me the entire plan, make it obvious. But the universe says, here is one step, here is one feeling, here is one sign. That is how trust is built, not through certainty, but through learning to walk with faith in what feels subtle yet true. And here is something important. Silence is not about the absence of sound, but the presence of awareness. You can be in the busiest city, surrounded by noise, and still find the silence within you if you choose to pay attention. You can sit in your own thoughts and hear the whispers of guidance between them. Silence is not a place, it is a practice. The more you return to it, the clearer the universe's voice becomes. Sometimes, the silence is the answer itself. When you feel lost and ask for clarity, and no immediate response comes, it doesn't mean the universe has abandoned you. It means the timing is still unfolding. The silence is asking you to wait, to trust, to let things align. Often, when you look back later, you realize that the silence was protecting you, preparing you, or holding space until the right moment arrived. What feels like absence is often presence in disguise. So the next time you feel uncertain, do not demand a thunderbolt. Do not expect life to draw the map for you in flashing lights. Instead, step into stillness. Pay attention to the smallest signs. Trust the tug in your heart, the idea that comes when you least expect it, the coincidence that feels too precise to ignore. These are the ways the universe speaks, when it chooses silence over sound. And when you begin to hear that silence, you will realize it was never empty. It was always full of guidance, waiting for you to listen. One of the hardest truths to accept is that you are not in control of everything. The mind resists this with all its strength. It wants certainty, it wants guarantees, it wants to know how the story ends before the first chapter even begins. And yet, life does not work that way. The universe never asked you to control every outcome, only to show up, to trust, and to let go of what was never yours to carry. When you cling too tightly to how things must unfold, you suffocate the very flow that is trying to guide you. We mistake control for safety. We think that if we plan every detail, if we hold tightly to expectations, we can prevent disappointment, avoid failure, and escape pain. But what usually happens? The tighter we hold, the more life resists. The more rigid our grip, the more fragile we feel. Because control is an illusion. It offers the illusion of stability, but the moment life shifts in an unexpected way, everything we built around that control begins to crumble. Letting go does not mean doing nothing. It does not mean abandoning your responsibilities or giving up on your dreams. It means understanding that your role is to take steps, to plant seeds, to move forward with intention. But the unfolding of those seeds, the timing of the harvest, and the form it arrives in, is not something you can dictate. Control belongs to the ego. Trust belongs to the soul. And when you live from the soul, you begin to see that surrender is not weakness. It is the only way to truly move with life instead of against it. Think of a river. You can swim with the current, or you can fight against it. Swimming with it doesn't mean you stop moving. It means you allow the natural flow to carry you while adding your own strokes. Fighting it drains you, pulls you under, and leaves you gasping for breath. Life works the same way. You can resist the unknown, clench your fists around the outcomes you demand, and exhaust yourself trying to bend reality to your will. Or you can open your hands, release the illusion of control, and let yourself be carried to places you never imagined you could go. Every time you try to control what is not yours to control, you shrink your world. You close doors that might have opened. You blind yourself to opportunities that could have changed everything. When you let go, you allow space for the unexpected, for the miraculous, for the universe to weave its patterns through your life in ways your mind could never design. That is why so many of the most beautiful moments in life arrive unplanned. You didn't schedule the exact second you met someone who changed your world. You didn't choreograph every twist of the journey that led you to where you are now. The best things often come when you loosen your grip and allow them to arrive. Letting go of control also means releasing the burden of outcomes. So often, you attach your worth to results. If it works out, you are enough. If it fails, you are not. But the universe does not measure you by outcomes. It measures you by courage, by intention, by the willingness to walk even when the path is uncertain. The outcome is not your burden. It is the unfolding of something larger. When you stop chaining yourself to results, you free yourself to live fully in the process. You no longer live in fear of failure, because failure itself becomes just another step on the journey, not the end of it. Surrender is not passive. It is active trust. It is the decision to live in alignment with something greater than your own limited perspective. It is saying, I will give my best. I will take the steps I can, but I will release the demand that life must happen my way. And in that release, a quiet strength arises. You begin to notice that when one door closes, another does open. When one path ends, another begins. What once felt like a disaster often reveals itself later as a blessing in disguise. But you can only see that when you stop gripping so tightly to the picture you had in your mind. The beauty of surrender is that it doesn't remove uncertainty, but it makes uncertainty sacred. You stop needing to know everything, and instead, you trust that you are being guided. You find peace in the not knowing, and strangely enough, it is in that very space of surrender that clarity often emerges. So when you feel lost, remember this: you were never asked to control the entire journey. You were only asked to walk it with trust. Life has a way of leaving clues, but they are rarely loud or obvious. When you are willing to slow down and pay attention, you begin to notice how certain things repeat themselves, how certain patterns emerge, how moments align in ways that feel almost too precise to dismiss. These are the synchronicities, the seemingly small coincidences that carry within them the quiet assurance that you are being guided. To many people, they may appear random, but to the one who is paying attention, they are anything but random. They are reminders that the universe is not chaotic, it is deeply interconnected, weaving threads you cannot always see but can always feel. Think about those times you kept seeing the same number over and over again, on clocks, on receipts, on street signs. Or the moments when you thought of someone, and then, without reason, they called you. Or perhaps you were wrestling with a decision, unsure of which direction to take, and then stumbled upon a conversation, a book, or a stranger's words that spoke directly to your situation. These are not accidents. They are signals that life is listening, that you are being nudged, that you are not wandering without guidance. The mind often dismisses such things as coincidence because it prefers certainty and proof. But trust does not grow from proof, it grows from experience. And the more you allow yourself to notice these patterns, the more you realize they are not occasional, they are constant. Life is always in dialogue with you, always reflecting, always offering signs. It is not that the universe suddenly started guiding you when you felt lost. It has been guiding you all along. What changes is your awareness. Recognizing synchronicities requires presence. If you are rushing through life, consumed by distractions, you will miss them. It is like being in a room where a quiet song is playing in the background. If you are speaking loudly, scrolling endlessly, or preoccupied with noise, you will never hear it. But when you pause, when you listen, the melody becomes clear. In the same way, the universe is always speaking, but you have to choose to listen. What is powerful about these patterns is not only that they remind you of guidance, but that they also build trust in the flow of life. When you notice them, you begin to realize you are not stumbling blindly. You begin to understand that even in uncertainty, you are aligned with something larger. The person you met at just the right moment, the opportunity that came when you least expected it, the challenge that seemed unfair but led you to growth you didn't know you needed. All of it is part of a greater design. There is a subtle comfort in this. It means you don't have to figure out everything at once. You don't need to see the whole map. The universe leaves breadcrumbs, and those breadcrumbs are enough to guide you. One synchronicity, one sign, one aligned moment leads to the next. Slowly, you begin to see that your path is unfolding step by step, and that feeling lost was never a sign of abandonment, but an invitation to pay closer attention. It is also worth remembering that these patterns do not always look the way you expect them to. Sometimes guidance comes wrapped in struggle, in detours, in endings. A door closing may not feel like a blessing when you are standing in front of it, but later you realize it redirected you to something greater. The pattern was there, hidden in the pain, waiting for you to recognize it in hindsight. That is how life often teaches. The guidance is there in the moment, but the understanding arrives later. When you begin to honor synchronicities, you stop seeing life as random. You begin to live with a sense of wonder, noticing how deeply connected everything truly is. You realize that the people you meet, the experiences you go through, the lessons you learn are not isolated events. They are threads in a tapestry, and while you may only see fragments, the universe sees the whole design. Trust is born when you stop dismissing those fragments and instead allow them to remind you that you are part of something meaningful. So the next time you notice a pattern repeating, the next time life seems to place the right word, the right person, or the right moment in front of you, don't brush it aside. Pause. Acknowledge it. Allow it to be the reassurance it is meant to be, because when you recognize the synchronicities in your life, you no longer walk in doubt. You walk with the quiet confidence that you are being guided every step of the way. So much of the time, when people feel lost, they search frantically outside of themselves for answers. They look to others for validation, to society for direction, to trends for a sense of belonging. They chase advice, read endless comparisons, and measure themselves against paths that were never meant to be theirs. And yet, the truth is that the universe does not live out there in someone else's approval. It moves through you. The same intelligence that shapes the stars, that guides the seasons, that breathes life into everything, also flows within your being. To find your way, you do not need to grasp at the noise outside. You need to turn inward and listen to what has always been speaking within you. There is a voice inside that is quieter than fear, gentler than doubt, but infinitely wiser than both. It doesn't compete for your attention the way fear does. It doesn't shout, it doesn't pressure, it doesn't demand. It whispers, patiently waiting for you to make space to hear it. But because it is subtle, you often overlook it, dismissing it as nothing more than a passing thought or a fleeting feeling. Yet, that quiet knowing is where the guidance of the universe lies. It doesn't come dressed as certainty. It comes as a feeling that resonates in your chest, as a sense of alignment that doesn't need to be explained, only trusted. When you turn inward, you realize that stillness is not empty. Stillness is full. It is full of clarity you couldn't access when your mind was rushing. It is full of direction you couldn't see when you were caught up in comparison. The universe does not always hand you a roadmap, but it does place within you a compass. That compass is your intuition, and the more you honor it, the stronger it becomes. But like any compass, it only works when you stop spinning in circles long enough to hold it steady. The reason so many feel disconnected is because they have been taught to ignore that compass. From a young age, people are conditioned to seek answers outside themselves, to trust authority more than instinct, to doubt their own inner wisdom. Over time, that voice becomes buried under layers of fear, expectation, and self-doubt. But it never disappears, it waits. And the moment you slow down, the moment you create space, it rises again. That is the moment the universe begins to reveal direction, not as a fixed destination, but as a step, a nudge, a quiet assurance that you are not as lost as you think you are. Turning inward also means being willing to sit with the discomfort that surfaces when the noise fades. Silence has a way of bringing up truths we've avoided, unhealed pain, unresolved questions, the deep longing for something more authentic. Many people resist this, preferring distraction over honesty. But those moments of discomfort are not punishments, they are invitations. They are the universe's way of clearing the clutter so that your inner guidance can shine through. If you are brave enough to face them, you begin to hear yourself again. And when you hear yourself, you hear life itself speaking through you. You might not get every answer in an instant. Sometimes all you receive is the sense of one next step. But that is enough. The universe rarely reveals the whole path at once, because if it did, you might become overwhelmed or try to skip the process that shapes you. Instead, it gives you just enough light to take the step in front of you. Then, as you walk, more light appears. In this way, the inward journey is less about arriving and more about aligning. Every moment you honor that voice within, you step closer to the path that was always meant for you. What makes this journey powerful is that it teaches you self-trust. You begin to see that you don't need every opinion, every piece of outside validation, every external plan to feel secure. You discover that when you quiet down and listen inwardly, you already know more than you thought you did. That inner knowing may not give you every detail, but it gives you enough. enough to keep walking, enough to keep believing, enough to trust the unfolding. And the more you return to that inner space, the more connected you feel, not only to yourself, but to the greater universe moving through you. What once felt like isolation begins to feel like communion. What once felt like silence begins to feel like guidance. And what once felt like being lost begins to feel like being redirected. Because the truth is, when you turn inward to find direction, you realize you were never truly lost. You had simply forgotten how to listen. Patience is one of the hardest virtues to practice when you feel lost. In those moments, the mind wants everything immediately. It wants answers today, clarity now, and resolution without delay. The uncertainty feels unbearable, and so you try to rush the process, to force something to happen, just so you can escape the discomfort of waiting. But the universe doesn't move at the pace of your impatience. It moves at the pace of alignment. And alignment often requires time, far more time than your restless mind is willing to allow. There is a reason why certain things do not happen when you want them to. Life has its own timing, and that timing is not random. It is protective, it is preparatory, it is purposeful. What looks like delay is often the universe creating space for the right conditions to come together. Imagine planting a seed and then digging it up every day to see if it has grown. The constant disturbance prevents it from taking root. Growth needs stillness, nurturing, and time beneath the surface before it can break into the light. In the same way, your journey requires patience while life rearranges itself in ways you cannot yet see. The challenge is that waiting feels like nothing is happening. You look around and see others moving forward, achieving milestones, finding clarity, while you remain in the fog. But what if the waiting is not emptiness? What if the waiting is the very place where transformation is happening, quietly and invisibly, preparing you for what's next? Just because you cannot see the progress does not mean it isn't unfolding. Much of life's greatest work is done in silence, hidden from view until suddenly it blossoms. Patience is not about sitting passively and doing nothing. It is about learning to trust that even when you are not in motion, the universe is. It is about understanding that your journey is not falling behind. It is unfolding in perfect timing. To practice patience is to accept that things will come together not when you demand them, but when they are truly ready. And when they are ready, they will not require forcing. They will flow naturally, like a river finally reaching the sea. There is also wisdom in delay. Often, when something you wanted didn't arrive as quickly as you hoped, it is because you weren't prepared to receive it. Life uses waiting as a way of shaping you. It refines your character, builds your resilience, teaches you lessons you will need later. If the door had opened too early, you might not have been strong enough to walk through it. If the opportunity had appeared before you were ready, you might not have recognized its value. The waiting is not punishment, it is preparation. When you understand this, patience begins to feel less like suffering and more like trust. You stop seeing time as an enemy and start recognizing it as an ally. You stop fighting against the pace of life and begin to align yourself with it. The truth is, impatience drains you. It fills you with anxiety, with restlessness, with doubt. Patience strengthens you. It teaches you endurance, faith, and the ability to stay grounded in the present, even when the future is unclear. And it is often in the very moments when you finally surrender, when you finally stop demanding that life unfold on your schedule, that things begin to shift. Because surrender is what creates space. When you no longer try to control or rush the outcome, you allow the universe to work without resistance. The clarity arrives, the opportunity appears, the path reveals itself, but only after you've made peace with the waiting. So when you find yourself in a season of delay, do not mistake it for abandonment. Do not believe the lie that nothing is happening. Trust that life is still moving beneath the surface, that your seed is still growing roots. Have patience, not because waiting is easy, but because waiting is sacred. And in time, you will see What once felt like silence was actually the universe aligning everything for the moment when you were truly ready to receive it. To trust the universe fully is to step beyond the grip of fear. Fear convinces you that uncertainty is dangerous, that the unknown is something to avoid at all costs. It whispers that if you cannot predict the outcome, you should retreat, play small, and cling to what feels safe. But living this way keeps you trapped in a cycle of hesitation. You may survive, but you never truly live. Faith, on the other hand, does not require proof. Faith is the quiet conviction that even though you cannot see the entire path, it is still there waiting for you to walk it. When you choose faith over fear, you shift your perspective. Fear says, "What if it all falls apart?" Faith says, "What if it all comes together?" Fear says, "You are not strong enough to face what's ahead." Faith says, "You will find strength as you move forward." Fear locks you in the prison of doubt, while faith opens the door to possibility. The difference between the two is not in circumstances, but in how you decide to meet those circumstances. It is not easy to live this way. Fear often feels more convincing because it is immediate and loud. Faith requires stillness, patience, and trust. But think back to the moments in your life when you acted with courage despite fear. Didn't something greater always meet you on the other side? Maybe it wasn't what you expected. Maybe it didn't arrive in the form you imagined, but it carried you forward. That is the nature of faith. It is not blind. It is deeply rooted in the memory of all the times life has held you before. Living beyond fear does not mean fear disappears. It means you no longer allow it to dictate your choices. You acknowledge it, you see it for what it is, and you move anyway. You begin to understand that fear is simply the mind trying to protect you. But that protection often keeps you from the very experiences meant to grow you. Faith is what allows you to take steps into the unknown, trusting that the universe supports you even when you cannot yet see how. There is a freedom that comes when you lean into faith. You stop needing to control every detail because you realize that life has a rhythm of its own. You stop trying to predict every outcome because you know that even if things do not go as planned, they will still lead you to where you are meant to be. You stop resisting uncertainty, and instead you allow it to become the space where miracles unfold. Faith is not naive, it is resilient. It understands that challenges will come, but it believes that within those challenges lies the potential for transformation. The more you live by faith, the more you begin to notice how supported you really are. A chance meeting opens a door you didn't know existed. A setback pushes you toward a path you would have never chosen, but later realize was exactly where you needed to go. An ending clears space for a beginning you could not have imagined. These are the ways the universe responds when you trust it. Fear would have you missed these gifts, because fear convinces you to stay still, to never risk, to never try. Faith invites you to step forward, knowing that the ground will rise to meet you. Living beyond fear is also about reclaiming your power. Fear shrinks you, makes you question your worth, convinces you that you are not ready or capable. Faith restores you to your true size. It reminds you that you are not separate from life's flow. You are part of it. And when you align with it, you are never truly unsupported. Even in moments of struggle, there is meaning. Even in moments of loss, there is renewal. Even in moments of darkness, there is light waiting to break through. So when you find yourself lost, uncertain, or afraid, remember that the choice before you is simple. You can shrink back into fear, or you can expand into faith. Fear may feel safer in the moment, but it keeps you stuck. Faith may feel risky, but it sets you free. And when you dare to live with faith beyond fear, you discover that what once felt like confusion was always the path to your deepest clarity.